Welcome back to the desk. Three threads run through today's brief: the state, the body, and the family, and each one hides a sociological structure beneath a headline. This is the Sociology Desk, issue 016. Three events today, and for each, the concept, the thinker, and the precise way to write it, so your answer reaches the 19-mark band. Let us begin. Our first event. The government has moved to amend the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, tightening control over the foreign funding of NGOs and civil society organizations. Where does this sit? Paper 1. Politics and Society, the unit on civil society. The weak candidate writes about NGO regulation. You will read it as civil society being placed under state custody. So how do you open? Not with the bill's clauses. Open with the structural claim. Civil society is meant to be an autonomous sphere between the family and the state. And when the state can throttle its funding, that autonomy is quietly captured. The threat alone disciplines. The NGO begins to police itself. That framing puts you straight into a theory of state and civil society. Two Indian thinkers anchor this. Andre Beteille located civil society in autonomous institutions, the press, universities, associations that stand apart from the state. And Partha Chatterjee sharpens it, distinguishing a thin, liberal civil society of the educated few from the wider political society, where most citizens actually press their claims. When the state captures the funding of civil society organizations, it narrows that already thin liberal sphere even further. Two Western thinkers complete it. Jurgen Habermas would read this as the colonization of the life world, administrative and money power penetrating the deliberative space where citizens reason together. And Michel Foucault gives the subtlest insight: governmentality, the threat of asset takeover, reshapes how the NGO behaves without a single direct order. Conduct is governed at a distance. Power here works not by crushing, but by making the organization discipline itself. How to write it for marks? The 14-mark script lists the FCRA provisions and debates whether NGOs are good or bad. The 19-mark script opens with civil society autonomy under capture, names the amendment as the instrument, deploys Beteille and Chatterjee on civil and political society, then adds Habermas on the colonized life world and Foucault on governmentality, the discipline of the threat. It closes forward: a democracy is measured by the autonomy of the sphere between citizen and state. Two Indian and two Western thinkers, one tight argument. That is top band. Expect this. 20 marks, paper 1. In the light of the Foreign Contribution Regulation Amendment, critically examine the changing relationship between the state and civil society in India. Hold Beteille, Chatterjee, Habermas, and Foucault, and the answer is yours. Our second event is a single stark number. The latest National Family Health Survey records female sterilization at 36.5% of married women's contraceptive use, against just 0.5% for men, a 73:1 ratio. Where does this sit? Paper 2, Population Dynamics, Family Planning, Linked to Patriarchy. The weak candidate calls it a family planning statistic. You will call it a structural distribution of bodily risk onto women. Your anchors. Bina Agarwal's bargaining model of the household explains the mechanism. Contraceptive choice is the outcome of negotiation inside the home, and a woman's leverage depends on her fallback position, her exit options, which are weakened by not owning land, by low employment, and by living in her husband's village. So the female body becomes the path of least resistance. And Uma Chakravarti reminds us why control over female reproduction matters structurally. It is the central axis that preserves caste endogamy across generations. Two more sharpen it. Michel Foucault's idea of biopower shows that since the emergency, Indian family planning has made the female body the primary site of demographic administration. The population is managed through women. And Pierre Bourdieu's symbolic violence explains why it feels natural. The naturalization of women bearing the contraceptive burden conceals the structural arrangement beneath a vocabulary of choice. What looks like a woman's decision is a structure wearing the mask of choice. How to write it for marks? The 14-mark script reports the numbers and recommends male participation in family planning. The 19-mark script opens with population policy as the encoding of who bears the cost, deploys Agarwal's bargaining model with the fallback position, names Foucault's biopower on the female body, and exposes the language of choice through Bourdieu's symbolic violence. Add Chakravarti to root reproductive control in caste. Close on the structural point, the 73:1 ratio is stable across surveys because the structure, not the choice, is stable. That stability insight is the difference between 15 and 19. Expect this. 20 marks, paper 2. In the light of recent survey findings on gender and contraception, critically examine how population policy distributes reproductive burden along structural lines. Hold Agarwal, Foucault, Bourdieu, and Chakravarti, and the answer is yours. Our third event is a 10-marker, but a deep one. National crime data records over 5,700 dowry deaths, overwhelmingly concentrated in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Madhya Pradesh, the northern states. Where does this sit? Paper 2. Systems of kinship with violence against women. The weak candidate calls dowry a social evil and lists remedies. You will say something far sharper. The geography of dowry deaths is the geography of kinship. Your anchor is Iravati Karve and her enduring distinction between northern and southern kinship. The northern Indo-Aryan zone runs on village exogamy and the permanent transfer of the bride to a structurally unrelated affinal household, severing her natal ties and turning marriage into a one-way property flow, the soil in which dowry grows. The southern Dravidian zone permits cross-cousin and uncle-niece marriage, keeping the bride within the kin network, which dampens dowry inflation. And Veena Das shows how this kinship asymmetry materializes as the ordinary, everyday violence of the conjugal household. So how to write this 10-marker? Do not list dowry as a social evil with remedies. That is the trap that omits the analytical core. Open with the geography of dowry as the geography of kinship. Deploy Karve to explain why the north concentrates the deaths and does to show how the asymmetry becomes everyday violence. 150 disciplined words, 2 thinkers, 1 structural argument, and the likely question quote, the northern kinship zone and the geography of dowry are structurally linked, unquote, explain. With Karve and Das, it is yours. Let us revise. 1. The FCRA amendment. Civil society under custody, read through Beteille and Chatterjee, with Habermas and Foucault on the colonized lifeworld and governmentality. 2. The 73:1 sterilization ratio, read through Agarwal's bargaining model, Foucault's biopower, and Bourdieu's symbolic violence. 3. Dowry deaths, the geography of kinship, read through Karve and Das, and the rule that decides your rank. Treat the event as evidence and make the theory the destination. That is today's brief. If you would like the full answer blocks and model answers for these events, just leave your email in the comments or write to us at team@upscdesk.com and our team will share the subscription details. I wish you the very best with your preparation. And remember, the journey is long and the quiet discipline of returning to the desk each day is what separates those who clear this examination from those who merely attempt it. I will see you tomorrow.